Right now, somewhere in your skull, a conversation is happening that you didn't ask for. It's replaying something you said 6 hours ago. It's rehearsing an argument that hasn't happened yet. It's asking the same question for the 9th time tonight. Did I mess that up? Here's the unsettling part. Your brain isn't malfunctioning when it does this. It's working exactly as designed. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand the actual machinery behind that voice. And more importantly, the exact moment where you can shut it off. Let's start with a question most people never ask. Why does overthinking exist at all? Evolution doesn't usually keep useless features around. 200,000 years ago, a rustle in the grass meant one of two things: wind or a predator. The humans who paused, replayed the sound, scanned every possibility, and prepared for the worst-case scenario. They survived. The ones who shrugged it off didn't always get a second chance. That threat-scanning circuit lives in a small, almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. It's ancient, it's fast, and it doesn't distinguish between a hungry lion and an unanswered text message. To your amygdala, silence from your boss after you sent that email registers on the same threat scale as a predator in the grass. So it does what kept your ancestors alive. It loops the scenario again and again, looking for a way out that isn't there because there was never a lion to begin with. You didn't inherit a broken brain. You inherited a smoke detector so sensitive it goes off from burnt toast. But here's what should really concern you. This isn't just an ancient reflex anymore. Neuroscientists found something in the brain that turns this reflex into a full-time job. And it has a name most people have never heard of. In the early 2000s, neurologist Raichle was running brain scans and noticed something strange. When people stopped actively concentrating on a task, their brains didn't quiet down. A specific set of regions actually lit up more. He called it the default mode network, the brain's baseline state when it isn't focused on the outside world. It activates when you're in the shower, lying in bed, sitting in traffic, and its job is self-referential thinking, reviewing your past, simulating your future, checking your social standing. This network is why your best and worst thoughts show up when you're doing nothing. It's also, according to research out of Yale, led by psychologist Judson Brewer, the same network that lights up during rumination and anxious spiraling. In his lab's brain imaging studies, the more active this network became, the less present and more anxious people reported feeling. In other words, the version of you that overthinks isn't a separate, dysfunctional you. It's your brain's default setting, literally, when nothing else is competing for its attention. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If overthinking is your brain's factory setting, why do some people seem to switch it off, while others get trapped in it for hours? The answer isn't willpower. It's a loop most people don't even know they're running. Psychologist Nolen-Hoeksema spent decades studying this exact pattern. She gave it a clinical name: rumination, the tendency to passively and repetitively focus on the causes and consequences of your distress, without ever moving toward a solution. Her research, which followed people through real-world stressors, including the aftermath of the 1989 Loma Prieta earthquake, found something critical. It wasn't the size of the problem that predicted suffering. It was whether someone's mind kept reprocessing it without resolution. Ruminators didn't solve problems faster by thinking about them more. They just suffered longer. Here's the mechanism. Overthinking feels productive. Your brain rewards you with a small hit of a sense of control every time you replay a scenario, as if turning it over one more time might finally produce an answer. Psychologists call this an illusion of problem solving. You're not actually working through anything. You're pacing in a locked room, convinced that walking faster will eventually open a door that was never there. And there's a physical cost to this that most people never connect to their late-night spiraling. Every time your mind replays a threat, even an imagined one, Your body responds as if it's real. Cortisol rises. Heart rate increases. Sleep architecture gets disrupted before you've even noticed you're tired. Psychologists Peggy Zoccola and Sally Dickerson have spent years documenting exactly this. Their research, published in the Journal of Psychosomatic Research and Psychosomatic Medicine, found that people who ruminated after a stressful event kept elevated cortisol circulating in their body for far longer than people who didn't, sometimes stretching the physical stress response well into the evening, long after the original stressor was over. Your brain doesn't know the difference between a real emergency and a rehearsed one. It just keeps paying the bill. This is the part almost nobody tells you. Overthinking isn't just uncomfortable. It's metabolically expensive. You're running your body's emergency systems for a threat that, statistically, usually never arrives. There's a line often repeated in self-help circles, usually credited to Mark Twain, joking that he'd lived through a great many terrible things in his life, most of which never actually happened. Historians have never actually traced that line to anything Twain wrote or said, so treat it as folk wisdom, not fact. But the sentiment behind it holds up under real research. That's not a comforting platitude. It's an accurate description of what the default mode network does when left unchecked. It manufactures futures and replays pasts, and your body reacts to the manufacturing, not the reality. So if this loop is automatic, ancient, and physically costly, is there actually a way out? Or are you just supposed to live exhausted? There is a way out. And it's not, stop thinking about it. That advice fails almost everyone who tries it. The real answer is stranger. And it's backed by one of the most replicated findings in cognitive psychology. Here's the shift that changes everything. You cannot suppress a thought loop, but you can change its container. Researchers studying worry, including work built on the stimulus-controlled techniques originally developed by psychologist Thomas Borkovec, found that people who scheduled a specific 15 to 20-minute worry window each day and postponed intrusive thoughts to that window reported significantly less anxious rumination overall. Not because the thoughts stopped, because the thoughts stopped owning unscheduled real estate in their mind. The instruction is almost embarrassingly simple. When a spiral starts outside that window, you don't fight it. You tell it calmly, "Not now. I have a time booked for you later." Then you return to what you were doing. This works because rumination thrives on urgency. It convinces you that if you don't resolve it right now, something bad will happen. Give it a guaranteed appointment, and the urgency collapses. The amygdala stands down because the threat has, technically, been scheduled for review. Pair that with one more tool, externalizing the thought. Writing it down physically moves it from the looping internal network onto a static page. Several studies on expressive writing, including work by psychologist James Pennebaker, show this alone reduces the intrusive, repetitive quality of distressing thoughts. Your brain isn't broken. It's a smoke detector doing its ancient job in a world that no longer has lions in the grass. You don't need to silence it. You need to give it a schedule and somewhere to put what it finds. If tonight's the night your mind starts looping again, don't fight it at 2 a.m. Write it down. Give it tomorrow's 15 minutes and go back to sleep. If this gave you a new way to understand your own mind, that's exactly what this channel is built for. Subscribe because in a few days we're going deeper into why your best judgment quietly falls apart by nightfall, a trap called decision fatigue, and the real reason smart people make dumb choices after a long day. Your brain isn't your enemy. It just needs better instructions. I'll see you in the next one.